No. Yes. A friend of mine, first time he pulled it into the gas station.
Do you know if we're going to have Dave?
I don't know. I didn't hear from him.
It is 6 o'clock, so why don't we go ahead and call this to order? You want to start with roll call?
Okay. Bentley?
Present.
Johnson?
Here.
Reed?
Here.
Bell?
Here.
Holland?
Here.
Thank you. Did everybody get an opportunity to review minutes from our August meeting? Any questions or anything within those? Can I get a motion to approve the August meeting minutes?
I motion to approve the August minutes.
Thank you. And a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Perfect. Audience items. Mr. Leonard,
No.
you just here to watch?
Yeah, I just wondered if you're going to do anything to Leonard Park this year. But
Okay. We did have some conversations a couple meetings ago. I was just reviewing some of the notes of considering adding a sidewalk from the one by the road up to it to kind of gain a little bit more access to it. It was, I don't know, Dave talked about it, but we had was it Ken? It was Ken that talked about it, that's right.
is that the road that goes down to the tunnel, or?
That path is already there. We were kind of thinking farther, closer towards Broadway.
Okay.
So kind of up through where the trees are to give it another access point instead of having to loop clear down and around.
I've been trying to get a road crank from the tunnel on the west side up to the sidewalk, but nobody seems to want to do that.
Oh. Up that little hill there?
Yeah.
Well,
Well, I just wondered.
it's not too many feet to the right? When you could go from the sidewalk down to the trail, right?
Yeah, it's a small one.
Maybe
I think
20 feet or
Yeah,
so.
I've been talking to them, but they don't think, I don't know.
Okay.
So, but it is on our radar to continue to
Thank you.
consider those options. I know it obviously won't be for this calendar year. We're going to start looking at a couple of the other parks that we're really looking at that have
The new
nothing.
ones.
Yep, the newer ones. But
It's a well-loved park.
it
that's
is.
for
It's
sure.
used all the time, and I know my kids love it. So, but we will continue to keep looking into that park and more improvements as needed.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right. Update on park improvement concept plans. Are you going to walk through these, Becky, or
I will let Randy Franson.
Randy?
We were gonna do these in phases, and that's not supposed to say Polk City Dog Park. It's Center Memorial Park, so.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
What you see there is, the first phase on that will probably be the black chain link fence around it. It'll be on the bottom right-hand corner there, it'll be that enclosure there as you bring dogs in and let them loose. Probably the portable restroom enclosure, the drinking fountain, and then any of the parking outside of that won't be in for this time. That'll probably be phased in later, and we're debating on maybe hard surfacing that for parking instead of that granular surface. So that's about all that is. That seating area you see in the middle is existing. It's just a cement pad with a bench, so that's already there. Really, that's in a simplified way. That's about it for that one. So if you have any questions on that one.
Park signs in the same spot right there, right?
Correct.
So and this granular surface would just be drawn lines, kind of like we have at the complex?
I don't even think it, well, yeah.
Or not necessarily lines?
Right. I think what we would do is we would wait to hard surface that, and then we'd have our handicap accessible parking, and then we could stripe it. But
Sure.
for now, it'll be rock.
We rock.
For a while.
Can I get you to take like one step higher and just make sure I understand? So we are, Snyder and Associates won the bid, correct? Is that the spot we're at, and this is their contract?
Snyder and Associates is our engineering that did the concept plan here. And now the next step will be, it'll go out for bid
Okay, got
to-
it, right on.
to actually do the construction.
Okay, Understood. Thank you.
So for all of our parks, we use Snyder to kind of do the renderings from it
Okay.
for that first phase. Yeah.
And this would be about 5 foot high, right?
Yes. Mike Schulte and I kind of toured the Ankeny dog park there and kind of stole some ideas there. So they actually have a septic tank for the dog waste, but we didn't really want to get into that too much. I think we'll just do the receptacles
Clean
there.
after your home.
Clean after you. That was my question.
The drain tile that you see cutting across there, that's already in. We did that about a year ago, and then we added dirt at the bottom. So it drains really nice now. It's not swamp. It's not really wet anymore, so.
And there isn't any kind of path through here. I'm just wondering, like with the handicap accessible, like we probably need a bench right inside there, don't we? Otherwise, if you need a handicap parking, you can't really.
The only accessibility they have really is from they don't really even have that now. It's not hard surface, but that would probably be in a later concept plan. There's a walking trail with gravel that goes to that seating area now, but it kind of goes into grass. So none of that's hard surface at this time.
But you're saying maybe having a bench up close for if
Yeah,
someone is able to
right.
get that far.
Yeah, if
And
we're
that's-
specifically having handicap
Well,
parking, I
I
don't see them.
think he actually has a bench in that enclosed area right there now in the corner. I think that's what that is. And then that must be a waste receptacle on the other side.
Oh, the little brown circle?
Yeah. That'll be, and then the drinking fountain, you can see it'll be people and pet oriented. So they'll be able to use both of them there.
What did we decide for access? Was there going to be a key or a push code or?
I don't think we've decided that
You're
yet.
not gonna-
I think now it's just gonna be just a walk-through
Open.
gate and we can always change something later if we have to.
I think that the conversation I know we had was Ankeny has like an annual fee they have to pay for it. Do they have a passcode to get into theirs? You said, or anyone
No.
out there? It's just it's on honor system, right?
Right.
Kind of what I thought.
No, it's
So, I
just a
mean,
walk-through gate, that's all it is.
Okay.
And I think they charge, if I'm not mistaken, when I looked into this a while ago, they charge either an annual fee or like a daily pass.
Yeah.
I'm not sure how they administer.
They also have a hard surface walking trail around theirs too, that goes
Oh.
around the whole route.
So maybe people can exercise
That could
and
be
walk
something-
while they're in there. Something we can
Could be
consider adding in the
something
future.
Consider adding later, yes. It'd be nice to maybe add that, and then you could get your accessibility to the seating area in the middle of it, and I'd probably tie that up in one project.
Would we do hard surfaces like if we were to put that in, and let's say we've got it here and 12 Oaks? Do we get a better pricing by doing them at the same time, or because they're different locations?
I think if you were to combine, I mean, the little cement projects I do around town, I do get a break on combining, 3 or 4 smaller ones into one pour, so yes.
Might be something to consider as we look at how we phase this out as well. Marrying up other phases that have that.
And do the homeowners know what the plan is for this park that are backed up next to it?
Or somebody that lives down the street from it?
No.
Another thought, isn't that a horse barn up in this corner?
Yeah, that changed owners right there.
Do they still have horses there?
No,
Okay,
they're not grandfathered in for livestock, so.
okay. Because that was gonna be my next question, is how would animals work there with
Right.
the horses just on the other side?
No, I think that's it right there, so.
By ordinance, once the animals are gone they're gone.
Yeah.
New owners can't bring
Can't
them.
bring them.
Yeah.
Do we feel there'd be concerns from residents in that area on having a dog park right there?
I certainly don't have any concern. I don't know. I know there's a lot of people who are counting on a kid-friendly park. And there are a lot of small kids up in our neighborhood again. There wasn't for a long time, and now there are.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know. I haven't talked to the residents to know how they feel about it. I'm curious. Is there only going to be this one entrance from this side?
Yes.
And it's doubly protect, like you'd have to
You have
kind
to go
of
through two
go through
gates.
one gate, have it shut behind you, and
No.
then you go through.
Yeah.
There'll be a working, the gate, the path that's in there right now, that'll be like a working entrance right there. So
Okay.
no, this over here will be for people and pets, and then we'll have a bigger gate over here for like truck access.
Truck access.
Sure, okay.
Well, what I see, that's great for people who live up here in the original part of town, or part of the original part of town, but everybody else, that's a long walk to walk around if you're gonna walk, and if there's only gonna be 5 parking spots.
But there isn't any other easement where we could have another fence, is there?
What you see right there is the city property. Like I said, it's so small,
That is actually an existing street. Tyler Street runs all the way back to there.
Right. But I meant,
But it'd be hard to put one in someplace else, otherwise you're walking through somebody's backyard.
yeah.
I think we need to check to see if there is an easement on the other side, on the north side.
Like maybe if there's one between somebody's home on is that Roosevelt?
Well, Ron, isn't this guy, what's his name? Is he selling this place?
I don't think so.
Tom
Yeah.
Brooks? No?
He puts it up for sale, but
No.
no.
Okay. That might be a time to
Yeah.
maybe
yeah.
get with a new owner.
Man, I could be wrong. I thought there was, because on comprehensive plans for the longest time, until just recently, Tyler Street was supposed to go clear through.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think anybody was disappointed that was changed, but
Old Tyler and New Tyler.
yeah.
That's what we used to call it.
You got the old Tyler and old Tyler at the beach.
Okay.
Any other questions on,
Do we have any idea of what we expect the usage level will be?
Pardon?
Do we have any idea of what we expect the usage level will be? Just like made me think of it when you talked about the parking and access. Do we have any data on?
Well, we had survey results, right? Or did we have survey results?
do we ever, I don't think.
Or did we ever
ever
administer
push out the
survey? How did we get
survey.
where'd the idea come from?
We had somebody come on site to request it.
A lot of people that I've talked to have been excited about it, but I don't know numbers. Because nothing's been formally
Mhm.
announced.
We had talked to some of the people at the dog park in Ankeny, and they were actually, some of them were excited that Polk City was thinking about doing something like this because they were, they're always looking for somewhere else new, maybe to go take their pets, so.
We need a way to charge them double now.
Yeah.
And that's where, the fees could come in later, so.
And I would say go in the same route as what Ankeny, just do an annual fee. I would mess with a daily one, but an annual, and
Or having a little
you can
like,
try to have that chip to
little
really
change
restrict
to
it.
Mhm.
But then you've got the cost of having to buy that whole system too, and
Or even if it, not something electronic, but even like the little keychain, little tag that someone could show proof that they paid.
if somebody were to come by.
I don't know
yeah.
who's gonna enforce it.
Yeah.
I know, I will be out there because I don't have a dog.
Well, maybe you should get a dog, and then you can just enforce it. Let your daughters do it.
Yes, I'm sure they'd be terrified.
Randy, what do you anticipate for regular maintenance? Just mowing?
Mowing and some, probably trimming trees once in a while. And then, I suppose we'll have to canvass that once in a while to make sure they're doing their part on picking up after their dogs, so.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that's as far as maintenance goes, that's pretty low maintenance right there.
And no new things need planted, right? We have all good existing trees there.
Yeah, there's a lot of walnuts in there, but,
So you cleaned out some,
there was some old.
probably last year.
Yeah, there was some old
Yeah.
cottonwoods in there that we got
I
rid
remember
of some of
that.
them, so.
Okay.
Did we ever clean, wasn't there one side, was it the north side that was all kind of bunch of overgrown bushes and stuff? Did we get that cleaned out at all, or?
That whole upper corner was all cleared out.
Okay.
We need to take a Facebook poll, see who's gonna use it.
Could I just, I'm curious about the fees as to, is it necessary to have a usage fee to the dog park? And if so, is it something that just everybody that's got a dog license could just have a dollar tacked on? I mean, I don't know where the money's going to go or what the purpose is as opposed to any other park that we don't have a fee on.
Yeah, especially if it's relatively low maintenance, do we even need to have a usage fee?
But you don't want to discourage use because it costs $1.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I don't think we were sold on the fee thing anyway. I think we would need to discuss that probably further.
Just like on a lot of the other fees, I mean, there's supposed to be fees for using a sports complex, and that doesn't
Yeah.
always get enforced,
So
so
might be a use
there might be,
the waste thing in Ankeny, is that something that would be costly for them to remove the waste and part of the reason they have the fee, or?
Well, I think they have a really, really high usage there, and it's, you're talking a septic tank with like a grinder in it, you're gonna have the smell and that's gonna have to be pumped out. Those pumps are gonna have to be maintained. I think we just kind of thought that maybe the receptacles would be a little bit better for now.
I don't think the
And this
residents
space-
would want that smell.
This space compares how in size to
Oh, and of course Ankeny's is bigger. I mean,
Okay.
it's on a weird spot of ground. It's like a great big triangle, but
Okay.
they actually have theirs split off. Part of it's like for the small dogs,
Okay.
and the big dogs are kind of on the other side.
Okay.
We didn't really have a good way to separate this, but I mean, if it ever got to be a problem later on, I guess we could look at that.
I don't know about the rest of town, but there's hardly a time I look out my window and somebody's not walking a dog.
Really? That's
Oh, yeah.
good.
Oh, yeah.
How about, would we want to set hours on a park like this, since there would be,
It'll be under normal park hours, closed
Okay.
at 10.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I believe so.
well, I just didn't know, should that be earlier, since it's not lit and it involves things that make a lot of noise? Would that be I mean,
I don't
it's not a
know.
lit park.
Can we set that differently, Becky? I mean, all the parks are at 10.
Oh, I
Yeah.
think.
I mean, it's possible.
Mm.
I think kind of the details of how this is gonna, the infrastructure is still kind of to be decided.
Sure.
So, I mean, the fees or no fees and the hours, I think that's all
Questions?
things that we can certainly
Questions for
decide.
later?
Absolutely.
We'll
I mean, those
run
are all
down.
great points, though.
Mhm. So fees, question mark, hours, same or different?
And hopefully it wouldn't be any noisier than a park with kids. I mean, I think it's supposed
Yeah.
to help the dog socialization, so they shouldn't maybe be crazy barkers, but kids are definitely loud at parks. too.
That's true.
And there won't be any lights in there then,
No.
right?
Yeah.
So that is a good point. Especially now that it's getting darker earlier and stuff. So great things to consider.
Yeah, I don't know that I've ever seen a lit dog park. Is there one in Ankeny? Lit, do you remember?
No, they just have some lighting up around their enclosure.
Yeah.
That's about
Sure.
it. And I don't even know if I would want that in there. I mean, you still have these houses there.
Proximity.
Yeah,
whatever.
yeah, I don't think it's necessary either. Should we look at the next one, or any more sorry, I'm not the person.
12 Oaks.
12 Oaks, you can see off of 12 Oaks Drive there off the left. The part of the first phase will be, of course, definitely one park sign coming in off of there. And then that trail will come in, make a little bend, and then we're going to stop it about right where the shelter is as it comes up around. And the reason we're doing that is we still have to do some pond work there, which might mean dredging. We might have to reshape some shorelines in there, and we just don't want to go any further than that until that pond is dealt with. But also what would be included, the first phase would be the shelter there, drinking fountain, and then bringing in electric. And then, like I say, eventually we'll connect onto that trail and bring it back up around, and then add that other park sign on the South Side Drive up there. it's really, really tight of a property line in between that north of that pond there and the homeowner right there. It's really, really skinny right there, and we might have to do a little extra dirt work just to try to get away from her property a little bit more.
Is this the one where a later phase would have playground equipment? But it's starting with,
No, that would be Lost Lake.
that was last week, okay.
Yep. We figured we were close enough to Marina Cove Pond
Yeah,
that
that's
we were
right.
gonna just
Keep
kind
the
of,
shelter, yeah.
This
yeah.
was for green space, shelter, and walking by the water and stuff.
correct.
But that's why we put in a shelter there instead of doing that. Spending a little bit more on the shelter so you can be more of a picnic here.
Mm-hmm.
It's fun.
And it'll also have a porta potty with a restroom enclosure around that too. The trail will be a little bit wider. I can't remember how wide that was, 6 or 8 foot. Anyway, just so a truck can back up in there and service that porta potty. The pond, we still have to take depths on that just to see how deep that actually is. Whether it needs dredged or not, I'm not really sure. And then it all goes down to what people would like. Do they want a riprap shoreline? Do they want a shoreline kind of like Marina Cove that's mowed all the way down and trimmed? I guess that's
What's riprap?
the big white rock. It's actually called gabion, but
Okay.
it's kind of there. It's pretty nice for aesthetics, but then it kind of limits you on your, if you want to go down and like fish. And
Yeah.
so yeah, either way, I mean, it looks nice, but the accessibility to the pond is a little bit tougher to get to also.
And is that a pond with fish in it?
I think it has fish in it. I don't know for sure.
Used to.
Did it?
Yeah, smaller.
So you catch a few back in the day?
Okay, that's good.
Will the shelter have electric as well then?
Yes. And we all almost thought about maybe adding like those stationary grills, maybe a couple of them in there too.
Mm-hmm.
That's not in this plan, but that could be added easily.
What's in there now for tree coverage?
There's really not much in there for trees. I think in that plan, we do have some money in there for trees to put in.
Any other questions for 12 Oaks? Lost Lake.
Okay, Lost Lake will be the big one. Phase 1, we will, I think what Mike and I like to do is to put in the sidewalk coming in off of Lost Lake Drive, the entry. And then that'll come around. There'll be a bigger pad there in front of the playground, which won't go in yet. And then we'd like to extend the sidewalk from Falcon Drive all the way to the north side of the park and connect to that other side. So that'll have a connecting sidewalk all along Broadway. There'll be a park sign at Broadway and Falcon, and then there'll also be a park sign at Lost Lake Drive for the other entrance. I guess before I even start, we still need to go in and tile this before we even start to take care of any water issues. Water will be brought in at the beginning, and electric, we'll have that in there. And then, like I say, the playground, rather expensive. That'll probably be like phase 2 on that one. But I think the pad, the cement pad and everything will be there. It'll be something similar to what we have at the town square, except much larger. And we'll go to those foam pads that are on the ground instead of mulch. We probably put in our last mulch playground.
Most of them will be converted to that eventually.
Well, just for the fact, kids in wheelchairs can't really navigate in the mulch, so it'd be a lot better to get in with that.
Does away with continual maintenance too.
Exactly. That wetland seating area he's got in there, that's just kind of a low spot to where the water drains out of that park and goes under North Broadway and goes up behind Prairie Wood Court. That's, like I say, I don't know if that's set in stone that'll probably be just grass there too, I would guess, once we get that drained out.
Does this take out the idea for the backstop for like kickball, softball?
We were trying to find a good spot for that. I mean, that could still be added. We would just probably have to find a good spot for it.
And then once the drain stuff's all done, it's relatively flat space right along through there, isn't it?
Yes.
Almost the whole thing.
Yep. And then, like I say, it all kind of drains towards that wetland seating area, and then it goes under the road from there.
Is there room up here? How does this compare in size to Kiwanis Park? I thought it was, I was driving by, I always thought it was about the same size.
I think it's about the same size if you were to squeeze both those parks into one.
Well, Kiwanis Park is probably our most used park, as
Right.
far as I know. And this has a lot of similarities in the size, and that a major road goes right by it, which I think is a plus because people can see where their kids are out there, and you can drive by, the police can drive by and keep it policed.
And there's a lot of homes going in there.
Yeah.
It's
and
a nice thing to see when you're coming in from town, from
Yeah.
the highway there.
I think these lots are all full. I think there's a house in every one of them now.
Yeah, where's
It's
yours?
not as pretty
40.
close.
40 is empty.
40's empty.
Yeah.
Where's yours?
That's my house there.
Yours is the existing one at the top.
Yeah, half built at that
I would
point.
like to see a basketball court up here.
But along that road, I think
That can be
40 is
done
the only
easily.
one.
Yeah, okay.
And we do have money in there for trees also. And like Ron was saying, maybe down the road, that might be a really good spot for another basketball court.
Yeah, we were kind of thinking around a backstop so kids could play kickball and use some of the space, similar to, basketball or just something different from there. But I think there's still plenty of room for all that stuff to
Yeah,
consider.
this map makes it look small, but
But
once you
it's-
get up there, it's
a large area.
Yeah, pretend the trees aren't there.
Right.
At one time, we toyed with the idea of putting in another basketball court down at Kiwanis.
Mhm.
A smaller one for smaller kids, because there seemed to be
Always
a
somebody.
problem with the smaller kids playing and the bigger kids coming running them off. So
Oh,
we talked about putting in a smaller court, but never happened.
So phase one, just to confirm, would be the sidewalk, kind of the full T sidewalk,
Mhm.
the tiling, and then the park signs,
Right.
and water and electric.
Probably water and electric also, yes.
And the playground padding. The playground, or at least the cement.
It'll be just the pad, yep. And then the padding and the playground will go in at one time.
And the specifics of what goes into the playground are decided at a later date when you get to phase two, or is that part of?
We have some, I don't have them with me, but we do have several different concept plans of what the playground would be.
Okay.
I should have brought those, sorry.
Yeah, I would be interested in looking
Yeah.
at those.
Is that something we pick, or do you guys pick equipment?
Schneider had 2 or 3 different pictures of, I could bring all 3 in and let you guys look at them too.
As a councilman, I would certainly want input from the park commission.
You know, a lot of times this summer when friends asked if we wanted to meet at a park, they suggested Parks in Johnson, Ankeny, others, and these are all like Polk City families. Like, what can we do to get people to, have a picnic at our park? And we did that too, but it just seemed like the common theme was go out. So how do we have a park that people stay at, and we get other people, that want to come to the Polk City Park and not just Big Creek, is common. But so I don't know, some of those parks are very hard to compete with. Like, we'll never be able to compete with Miracle Park, but little splash pads that are being put in all over, cool slides, just all kinds of things that are at these other parks. Can we do that here?
Well, at one time we were talking about some sort of a smaller splash park at Leonard. I know that was mentioned, but
Cost was pretty high, if I remember right.
Yeah, I had just put in 3 splash pads, I believe, at older parks. So I don't know if that's anything. I know they were different setups.
Right, I had some thoughts similar to those, and we have a lot of nice equipment throughout town. It's all very similar, is what my thought was, and so a lot of our parks are very much the same. So it'd be nice to have some variety in that. And my other thought was most of our parks, I haven't checked all of them out, they're all built for kids like ages 5 to 12, and I think a large majority of our park goers with children have children that are younger than that. And so it might be interesting too to look at what kind of equipment is out there for younger kiddos where it can serve all of our families a little differently than just that a little older age group. So I would be interested in looking at some different options for the parks that we do put in with play areas and looking in some creative options too that maybe, the playground equipment is crazy expensive, and so we might have some options that are
That playground is about $135,000.
that are cheaper and maybe provide a different play experience, and I think we could look at some creative things for that.
In the past, when we had looked at some for the pieces that were going out here to the square park, what we all call the square park, I don't know if it really has that name, we had talked about maybe not doing everything in just the primary colors of red, blue, and yellow, so maybe some natural colors or whatever, and then having some that are for ages 2 to 6, and then the other ones that are like 5 to 12, but maybe even sharing a space.
Mm-hmm.
So, Randy, when you're looking at yours, do any of those have like a combination where some pieces are like the little 2 to 6 toddler stuff, and
The ones we looked at, yes.
would have a combo?
They were a combination.
That would be cool.
Yeah, that'd be good.
Because I think out here we have a good variety for little and big. Well, maybe not so much big.
I'm going to ask a dumb question. Is smaller stuff cheaper?
No.
Not necessarily. The materials are all the
It's all the
same.
same.
Seems to me the smaller swing set shouldn't cost as much.
I know.
But we could, when we get to that point, and if we're not at that point, I understand. But we're a little at that point because if you're laying cement down, we at least need to know the parameters of where you're putting it. But there's a lot of creative things to put out there that isn't like a store-bought big piece of playground equipment. So just if we could enter
That
the
pad
idea
kinda-
at that time, I think it would be helpful.
This pad kind of combined 3 or 4 different.
Concepts of what would go in there.
That's cool. Yeah, I'd be interested. We'd probably all want to see some of the cool ideas that are out there. That one in Ankeny Sawgrass Park has kind of a wooden tree kind of feel. Do you guys know what I'm talking about? Where the base of it kind of looks like a trunk,
Yeah.
and then it has all kinds of fun to play stuff off of it. And that's a lot of natural colors and climbing pieces. That'd be cool too.
A big wooden tree, we just need to get the insurance guy on board.
Right. Because the national playgrounds are awesome too, and especially in this area, they would be some really fun things to do.
Mm-hmm.
We could swing it.
Perfect. Any other questions on?
Do we need to spread the word at all, or do we need to wait till things are a little more settled, or what are your guys' thoughts on that for the new parks?
Well, I think what you're looking at right now is basically infrastructure to begin with, in phase 1. So I would say once the infrastructure's in, then it's still a blank canvas. I mean,
So
right.
input could still be sought and
Sure.
analyzed, yeah.
Could it be something that, as we're getting closer to determine like what equipment we have, kind of open it up to that area and have them come to our meeting and give feedback? Is that something we can? Is that something we publicize? Is that just word of mouth? Doesn't sound like there's any controls, so you can go to town on Facebook, Audrey. Spread the word.
Well, I think a big thing is just to look and see what we have now and what's used and what's not used. Right now, I would say everything we have is pretty much used.
Yeah, there's always people up at Leonard Park,
Yeah.
Kiwanis, and and even
Well,
the
the
square's
square
got
always,
a lot.
people come out of the restaurants or whatever and let the
Just go
kids
straight
play
there.
there. See it happen all the time.
Perfect. So what are the next steps for us then?
I think the
Do we
next
have to have a
step,
motion to bid it out to council, or
I
is
don't
it
think
just?
that was in it, was it, Becky? It was
No, this was
a
just to
discussion.
review, just to
Okay.
show you kind of where we're at as far as the concept plans at this point. So,
And then what would our next steps be then? So we can keep this moving.
I think the next step is council gets the
so-
packets and then we put it out to bid.
For you to kind of decide what you want, and what direction you want it to go, and kind of the order of it, and then make that recommendation to council.
Any guess on what each of these projects would run?
I wish Lindsay was here. I was thinking the first, I think there was 50, there might have been 50,000 or 55 in Simmer.
50 is what I got for my notes, 50 for Simmer. And then 125 for the other two.
There you go. Okay, and I know.
So would it fit in that budget, you think?
Yeah, yes. Yes.
what did you ask would fit? Would what fit?
So we were allocated 50,000 for Simmer, 125 for the two, and phase one would fall into those parameters for all three parks.
Just phase one so far.
Just phase one so
Okay,
far
so
would at
it would
least
have to
fall in
be
there.
the
So
next one that would be.
there'd be that second phase, the second set of funds allocated from council to be able to finish them.
Okay.
Since these parks are in neighborhoods where Kiwanis Park really isn't, has fencing been thought about, or what the neighbors will think, or will kids cut through to go to the park, or?
Probably.
We did growing up.
Pardon?
We did growing up.
I didn't, I always followed the rules.
The only fencing that we had in all three of these parks was at
The dog park.
Yep.
Well, and that's something you don't,
Right.
doesn't have to happen in the first phase, or even the second or third. And there again, we don't want to see how it's received.
Right.
And I mean, at least with Lost Lakes, I don't know how easily you can fence it in because they've got the existing sidewalk all the way to the north.
Yeah,
I mean, people are already going to be coming in on that, and then we're just meeting up with that. So, I mean, unless you put
well,
it,
I was just thinking of the neighbors that back up to it.
They only have to go a
I'm
few
fine with
houses
You
to.
Well, there
like
could
the
be.
idea of running out the back door and going to the park, yeah.
I like sending my kids just out there and going. And
And
I know
that-
two or
that
three of
may
the
be the
homes
feeling.
along here down from us already have a fence anyways.
Yeah,
Yeah, I like the idea of leaving it up to the homeowner, and Marina Cove Park is similar in that aspect. Some homeowners have chosen to put in fences, and most
Yeah.
haven't, but at least
And the other
we maintain
struggle,
some consistency in our parks in that way if we don't.
there's a buried electrical and internet and everything all along that line anyways. It'd be kind of tight to put a fence in there anyways, so.
Really cool.
So this is an update, just to be clear, and we're not passing any motions. We don't need to do anything with it at this point in time, and we would have a little time at maybe the next meeting to review the playground concepts and look at
For
that.
phase two, correct.
Okay, great. Thank you.
And then eventually some more of the logistics will come up, whether that's
And I would say, yeah.
For the dog park, yeah.
And then council will just get this as this is kind of what we're wanting, the direction we're wanting to go already as is. And then they'll give us the thumbs up to bid it out or something along those lines.
yeah, I would think once you guys get things more concrete, and a big thing would be the chronological order of how things, which ones you want to go with, or are they all going to go at the same time?
They're all three set up to go at the same time.
I know they have the
Yeah.
money's all budgeted, so.
And I mean, just kind of the comment earlier, with a lot of this just being a lot of concrete work, I think at least for, 12 Oaks and Lost Lake, we'd want to run those at the same time if we can kind of save some on getting that one pour of the concrete between the two.
That was the good thing about putting it out to bid, because you'll have one contractor will have all three of these instead of trying to work with three different contractors. So it should be, I don't know, a lot better, I think, but.
What I would like to see just to begin with is if the commission accepts this, what do you call it?
Proposal,
Approval.
concept.
Yeah, the concept, if you approve of the concept, or if you have some big, I would just want to be able to tell the council next Monday night that the Parks Commission approves the concept.
Do we have,
With details to be worked out later.
okay. Well, let's go through each park real quick. Do we have any concerns or interest in changing the concept for Doc Simmers, for the dog park?
Can we figure out if there's room for an easement around one of the other sides based on availability?
Yeah, I think,
I mean, that's the only thing I would,
yeah.
I would say. Not necessarily that you would have to have parking per se, but access to maybe Washington or Roosevelt from there.
How far is the distance is that to Washington up there? Any idea?
200 feet.
So he put his house there, so 1 yard length.
I don't know if there's
You got Ed over there, or
space. If there's no easement there, nothing in place, then it probably isn't going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
But something you can keep in mind for a future.
That's something that
kids are.
Becky can probably answer in just a couple hours.
Yeah, just if there's any other access points.
And that's on this side?
Yeah.
Yeah.
If there is any access to Washington, if we have to make land acquisition, then I'd probably say it'll be a tough deal.
Sure.
Any concerns with the concept for 12 Oaks? We've got basically the road coming off of 12 Oaks Drive up to the shelter, that general area for pathing, the shelter, the drinking fountain, the sign, and the portable restroom enclosure. Electric and water as well. As far as moving forward with that as a phase one, any concerns with or adjustments we feel are needed? And Lost Lake, concrete work, the pathing all the way through, water. There's not electric on this one, correct? Yes, electric. Yep, it's up here. Would be electric, water, portable restroom, and the two signs. And then.
And the draining.
And the draining, yep. And then phase two, we would then look at the conceptual drawings of what equipment to put in there and making it friendly for a larger age group range.
Do we need to be concerned about the layout of where the equipment will go so that we aren't limited? Like,
I think Randy mentioned that it was the layout setup, at least for their plan, was going to fit a lot of what was.
Snyder, actually, Mike and I were kind of thinking that in that area somewhere, and then Snyder kind of confirmed that with what you could maybe add later. We were trying to not butt up to somebody's house so close. I mean, we're trying to get it away a little bit, but
It also keeps it away from Broadway as well.
exactly.
But as far as the amount of concrete, the area that you would be preparing for, the play area,
could we do that with more circular?
right? That would be more of the, without having the specific equipment picked out, it would be more difficult to know the exact dimensions.
Right, and like I said, this pad here matched about 3 or 4 of the ones he had so far.
So you're feeling like we'll find something that will work.
And once we pick the equipment, we'll be
Then-
able to kind of shape that how we want to, correct?
Exactly.
So this
It
won't
would
be
be-
poured with that path.
It
Just
would be
the thick
poured,
white
but we would
part.
have the opportunity to,
Just that, okay, not the part attached to the white part.
So the thick white part looks like the sidewalk, and where it gets wide there. And we're wondering, does any of that red part get poured yet that the mats will be put on?
Yeah, I think we have 2 options on that. I mean, that could be poured when the mats go down after we pick a playground. We can do that. But the wide piece will go in there for now. But we could wait on the pads, absolutely.
Is that kind of what you were wondering?
Yeah.
We just want to make sure when we don't
that
landlock.
location is a good spot.
Yeah, and we don't want to landlock ourselves to dragging in a heavy concrete truck over those bike paths either. I mean, I think we may want to think about, we may have to pour that before we even get started, because if you take a heavy truck down those bike paths, it probably is not gonna hold that truck.
Yeah.
It's gonna be too heavy. And I think it's gonna be too far away for probably a pumper.
How long is equipment available? Like if we looked at plans now, I mean, I know you said several different, but to me, like this looks very like basic, like what we already have, but I'm just guessing what each of these little things is.
That's nothing, that's just a pad.
Right, but like I'm thinking of Marina Cove Park, there's your little thing that you walk on and then the slides that come out and the structure, I mean.
The 3 or 4 that I saw pictures of are different. They are way different.
Be nice to have kind of a wow factor that is a little different, like Amy said, that brings variety.
Do you have a soft copy to where Becky could email those out to us tomorrow?
I do.
So I think, as a commission, are we all in agreement that the concepts, the plans are what we're interested in? Obviously, the more specifics will come when you pick out the actual equipment, but does that give you, Ron, what you need to take to council to?
That's all I'll say is the park commission accepted the concept plans. I think it's a good idea. It's the groundwork to start off, and then you'll get down to particulars later on.
Perfect. All right, thank you very much, Randy. This is very helpful. Mr. Morris, trees. How are we looking?
Better now that we've had a little rain.
I'm sure.
Every time it rains, I get happy, and so do the trees. Everything's good. I don't really have any report. When going back to these park things here, I see a really good grant opportunity for tree planting, specifically at Lost Lake. That would be a really excellent opportunity to get a DNR grant in on that one, and I'll pursue that when we get closer to that. I don't really have any particular report. I just enjoy your company.
Perfect. Thank you very much, sir.
Likewise.
Mr. Anderson, anything from the council?
No, just Mr. Dvorak up north fishing asked me to fill in. I appreciate being able to come before you. I, for one, really like these concepts, and I see a lot of potential in all of them that they can improve in. And I think that we need to put this kind of money back into parks every year. Now, whether we can or not, I don't know, but that's my feeling. But great job.
Great. Thank you. Staff report.
I don't have a report.
Public Works.
I probably talked too much already.
Anybody on the commission have anything to add or?
I had one question. I think last month we talked about maybe doing a sign that says fields at the complex are for by reservation or whatever, by reservation only or something like that, and call this number to reserve or something along those lines. Have we thought any more about that?
Well, and I guess I'm curious, do we know, I know you, Josh, had mentioned that there were some teams out of Johnston that were using the space.
Yeah, we had somebody from Johnston Little League show up once, and Central Iowa Little League put a stop to that.
Mm-hmm. We do have a group of young adults that Greg has had to talk to a couple times that have a fairly regular, I think it's a fairly regular time now that they're meeting out on the soccer fields. But one time Greg had to go out and tell them, guys, you can't, the sprinklers were running. They moved the sprinklers to another spot and played on the wet grass that had just been watered, moved goals. So he said to them, we're getting these ready for our season. Mm-hmm. When there's water running, it needs to stay right there. And adults playing with cleats right here is going to basically ruin the work that we've been doing. So I know he's talked to them at least twice. And it's probably just a pickup game. And I think they've been a little more respectful of putting the goals back where they go, et cetera. But that would be kind of an example of like, hey, if you're going to do something regular, you kind of need to maybe reserve that so we don't ruin it for the kids.
Right. Because, it's when it's a pickup game, they're entitled to that as far as my understanding. When it's just kind of, hey, let's go
If
play.
it's free, go play. Mm-hmm.
If it's going to be a structured practice or a game, then they need to reserve it through us. And if it's not a team that's the majority of it isn't based in Polk City, then there are fees associated. And we have turned people away from other communities that are looking for field space. So, and I was aware of that situation that you're talking about. At the same time, I know in the past when they're doing field maintenance, my understanding too was that they had those fields taped off to discourage.
Oh, yeah, we
People
had
using that.
in July, you know,
And
there were summers where we would block off parts with little ropes. Is that what you're thinking of?
I thought that's what they had done last
Yeah, but
year.
you don't have to do that every time you water.
Yeah.
I think that, the cover of this is, you guys okay, who can use the field from what dates, recommend to us, we approve who can. And I mean, we can't have people from wherever running a pickup game when practice is scheduled.
Right, and I don't think it's ever
Right.
conflicted yet that's going to be picking up, and they're not from here. And I think I think the first time it wasn't quite as, I don't know. I think they're probably looking at Greg like, "Who are you?" You know. But I think it's getting a little better. I just don't know if they'll be able to continue doing that if we're going to have practices there every night. You know, we're filling that up quite a bit now.
Well, and I haven't heard that there's been any issues since.
The watering and the
Right.
Yeah, I don't think so either. So yeah, they are entitled to it, but for pickup, would
Right,
the
for just
practices then
right,
take
right.
precedence if?
That's my understanding.
And that's how we've ran baseball is, if there's been any other teams outside, I've always referred them to the city. I tell them that during these dates, it's used every night, and it's not going to be available. But if you want any other time, talk to the city, and I've referred a number of them, mainly softball from Ankeny, to the city in the past. But yeah, any sort of pickup or even a father-son going down there,
Yeah.
they have to move off when there's a scheduled practice.
Well, we could do that if it starts
Right.
to conflict.
Well, and that's why we're trying to get better controls as far as the usage that is granted. Making sure that the organizations, softball and baseball, soccer, come before you for each season so that we know exactly what their dates are. And I know it's
that's
pretty
okay.
detailed,
Yeah.
pretty
Estimated
specific.
parking.
Exactly, but it just really helps us to know who's out there and using it.
Yeah.
So.
Very good.
Good deal.
All right. Do I have a motion to adjourn until our next meeting, October 2nd?
I will motion.
And a second? All in favor?
Hi.
Opposed? Have a good month.
Again, the primary complex is softball. I've seen them 100 times, but they have a service that's,
Yeah, thanks.